Welcome back to our channel, Zero to English, the podcast dedicated to helping you achieve fluency one practical conversation at a time. We break down real-world English so you can speak confidently in any situation. If you love practical lessons like this, please remember to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for more videos. Welcome back to the masterclass, everyone. I'm Perry.
And I'm Alan. Today, we are tackling one of the most high-stakes professional skills in English, giving and receiving constructive feedback.
This isn't just about being polite, it's about being effective. Getting the tone right, being firm but supportive, requires very specific vocabulary and structure.
Our goal is to move you beyond simple agreement or disagreement into the nuanced language of professional development. Pay close attention to how we phrase difficult points.
Let's jump into our core scenario. Alan, you're the manager and I am the team lead. You were giving me feedback on a recent project launch. Ready, Alan?
Absolutely, Perry.
Thank you for coming in, Perry. Overall, the Q3 launch was on the right track, especially considering the compressed timeline. We certainly hit our revenue target.
Thank you. I felt the team did a phenomenal job adjusting to the scope changes.
They did. However, we do need to discuss the process moving forward. I see some room for improvement in how the communication flow is managed, particularly with the external vendor team.
I suspect you're referring to the widget deployment delay.
Precisely. We missed the handoff deadline because our documentation wasn't finalized until the last minute. This created a bottleneck.
I take that on board, Perry. I know the documentation was late. We were waiting for final sign-off from legal, which pushed everything back.
I understand the external constraints, but our internal processes need to be robust enough to manage that external pressure. Moving forward, the expectation is that internal documentation will be completed 3 days before the vendor handoff, regardless of the legal sign-off status.
That feels like moving the goalposts slightly, given how we handled the Q2 launch, which had a similar legal delay.
It's an adjustment based on this learning experience, not a punitive measure. We need to create a buffer. We can circle back on the specific deadline change next week, but for now, let's focus on actionable steps for the next project.
Okay, I can commit to creating an internal drafts timeline that decouples our team's deliverables from the external legal dependency. That makes sense.
Good. Now, there was one other thing. The way you communicated the delay to the stakeholders, it was direct, but perhaps lacked the necessary context. That's a broader coaching issue we can put in the parking lot for our session next month.
Understood. I appreciate the clarity on the communication flow.
Excellent. So, to summarize the immediate actionable steps, create the decoupled internal timeline by Friday. Agreed?
Agreed. Thank you, Alan. That dialogue, while professional, contained several delicate exchanges. The language was carefully chosen to deliver difficult news without being accusatory.
Absolutely. Let's break down those core phrases we highlighted. The first was, on the right track.
This phrase is a crucial softening tool. Before introducing criticism, you always use a positive opener. Saying the Q3 launch was on the right track immediately validates effort, making the listener receptive to the next point.
It sets a positive foundation. The contrasting phrase was room for improvement. This is standard professional terminology for you made a mistake or this was inadequate.
You never say you failed at communication. You use the passive softened phrase. I see some room for improvement in how communication was managed. It focuses on the area, not the person.
My key phrase in response was, I take that on board. This is a highly professional way of saying, I acknowledge and accept your feedback. It's far stronger than just, okay.
It signals acceptance and willingness to act. Now, let's discuss the challenging moment in the dialogue when Perry used the phrase, that feels like moving the goalposts.
This is an idiom for when the rules or expectations are changed during the execution of a task, making completion suddenly harder. It's a very assertive but polite challenge.
As the manager, I immediately needed to acknowledge the challenge without getting defensive. My response was, it's an adjustment based on this learning experience. This reframes the change not as an arbitrary shift, but as a necessary optimization based on recent events.
Then we use two logistical management phrases, circle back and parking lot.
Both are essential for keeping a meeting focused. Circle back means let's revisit that topic later. Parking lot is a metaphor for an unresolved topic that needs its own dedicated meeting time.
For example, the deeper conversation about my stakeholder communication was put in the parking lot because the immediate priority was fixing the internal documentation process.
Finally, my closing phrase, actionable steps. Feedback must always conclude with concrete, measurable tasks. Create the decoupled internal timeline by Friday. This transforms criticism into a future plan.
By deconstructing the flow, positive opener, softened criticism, acknowledgement, take that on board, logistical management, and clear action, you can navigate any performance review in English.
Now we build our vocabulary toolkit. The key to fluent professional communication is knowing when to be casual, professional, or formal.
Let's look at 3 tiers of vocabulary for criticizing a delivery date.
Let's focus on phrasal verbs essential for review meetings.
Follow up. You use this constantly. I need to follow up with the vendor regarding their delayed payment, meaning check the status and pursue the issue.
Bring up. Used when introducing a sensitive topic. I want to bring up the issue of team morale during our one-on-one, meaning introduce or mention.
Work towards. Used for goals or future objectives. We are working towards a complete departmental reorganization by the end of Q4, meaning making consistent effort toward.
Let's focus on collocations for receiving feedback. The words go together naturally.
You don't just accept feedback, you embrace the feedback. This shows genuine enthusiasm for improvement.
You don't just have an issue, you identify a core challenge. This elevates the problem to a strategic level.
And finally, when you summarize, you are looking for a mutual understanding. This signals that you and the manager are aligned.
Let's practice embedding a formal phrase. If the issue is that I misunderstood the project goal, I shouldn't just say, I misunderstood.
You should use a slightly formal softening phrase. My understanding is that we prioritized speed over comprehensive testing. Was that incorrect?
My understanding is a perfect non-accusatory way to confirm or challenge an assumption. It protects your position while opening the door for clarification.
Mastery here means having the right words for the right level of formality, ensuring you never sound too casual during a serious performance review.
Grammar alone won't save you in a feedback session. Tone and cultural understanding, pragmatics, are key.
The biggest cultural hurdle is the Anglo-American tendency towards indirect speech, especially when delivering negative feedback.
We rarely jump straight to the criticism. Instead, we use cushioning or sandwiching. This is the feedback sandwich. Positive statement, negative feedback, the filling, positive or actionable closing.
Example, your presentation deck was visually stunning, positive, but the data slides lacked clear methodology, negative. So let's set up some time next week to refine the data narrative, positive or actionable.
Another pragmatic tool is using we instead of you. Even if the mistake is clearly the employee's, framing it as a shared institutional challenge reduces defensiveness.
Instead of, you made the mistake of failing the security audit, you say, we need to identify how our process allowed that security vulnerability to occur.
As the recipient of feedback, you must master active listening cues. Don't just stare blankly. Use verbal cues like, that's a fair point. I see what you mean. So, to clarify, you would like me to...
The final pragmatic rule is boundary setting. If you are asked to take on too much, you cannot simply say, I can't do that.
You frame it in terms of capacity and prioritization. I'm happy to prioritize the documentation, but if I do, the client onboarding checklist will be delayed by 1 day. Which delay poses the greater risk?
This technique, known as conditional prioritization, shifts the decision-making burden back to the manager, ensuring that you don't overcommit while maintaining a professional and proactive posture.
Time for practice. We are going to give you a scenario, and you, the listener, will pause and respond with the appropriate advanced English phrase.
Scenario 1. You are asked to redesign the entire department website, and the manager is unsure of the current content.
Your manager says, "We need a complete overhaul of the website content, but I'm not sure which pages are still relevant." How do you use the phrase, "my understanding is," to clarify the scope?
Pause for listener response. The best response: my understanding is that we are only updating the front-end design, not rewriting the content. Can we put the content review in the parking lot for Q4?
Excellent use of parking lot to manage scope.
Scenario 2. Your colleague has used an outdated procedure causing a minor logistical delay.
You need to give them feedback. Instead of accusing them, how do you use room for improvement and on the right track to soften the criticism?
Pause for listener response. You're definitely on the right track with the client handling. However, I see room for improvement in the procedure documentation itself. Let's update that together.
Perfect. You buffered the negative point with the positive.
Scenario 3. Your manager has given you specific advice on structuring your reports, which you immediately accept.
Your manager says, moving forward, all expense reports must categorize spending by department, not by project. How do you signal full acceptance using the phrase, "take that on board"?
Pause for listener response. I completely take that on board, Alan. I will revise the next 5 reports immediately to reflect the new categorization.
Dot response is clear, professional, and actionable. Practice these immediate responses until they become second nature.
We have covered the structures, vocabulary, and cultural sensitivities required for professional feedback. Now let's summarize the core strategy.
The perfect feedback exchange always follows this flow. Acknowledge and validate, use on the right track. Soften criticism, use room for improvement or core challenge. Receive and accept, use I take that on board or that's a fair point. Manage scope, use circle back, parking lot, or my understanding is, and commit to action to find clear, actionable steps.
For long-term retention, we recommend the mirror rehearsal technique. After receiving complex feedback, write down the conversation flow in your journal. Then, practice responding to the criticism out loud while looking in the mirror using the specific phrases we taught today.
This builds auditory muscular memory, making these complex phrases available under stress, which is exactly when you need them.
Your homework is to identify 3 work scenarios from the past month where you could have used moving the goalposts or conditional prioritization. Rewrite those conversations using our scripts.
The language of feedback is the language of professional growth. Master these tools and you master your career trajectory in English.
Thank you for joining us for this masterclass.
Keep building your fluency and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye for now.
Farewell.